Welcome everyone, and thank you for being here. Today we're going to talk about land due diligence, the checks you should carry out before you buy any piece of land. Buying land is one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make, and land carries a lot of hidden history you simply can't see by standing on the site. So over the next few slides, I'll walk you through the 15 checks we use to make sure a parcel is safe to buy before you part with any money. So let's start with the basics. What exactly is due diligence? Simply put, it's a structured investigation that confirms three things: that the land is legally sound, that it physically exists as described, and that it's free of hidden risk. Those are three separate questions, and a parcel can pass one and fail another. Getting this right does three things for you. It protects your investment. It confirms who really owns the land, and it lets you buy with genuine confidence. And just to be clear, this is not the same as a valuation. A valuation tells you what land is worth. Due diligence tells you whether it's safe to buy at all. Every report has to start by pinning down exactly what we're looking at. So here we capture the details that anchor everything: the client, the property reference, the location and county, the date, and who prepared the report. I want to draw your attention to that date in particular because the searches we run are only accurate as of that day. And the county matters too, because that tells us which registry we need to search. Next, we set out the scope of work. In other words, exactly what you've asked us to investigate. You'll notice these 7 items line up with the sections that follow. So think of this slide as the agenda for the whole exercise. And one important point: if we ever agree to narrow the scope, say to skip the site visit to save cost, then we have to flag the risks that fall outside that scope, rather than pretend they don't exist. Now we describe the parcel itself, and the goal here is simple: to prove that the land on paper is the same land you actually intend to buy. We record the parcel number, the land reference, the size, the tenure, the registered owner, and how the land is used now versus how you plan to use it. Pay close attention to tenure. Freehold means you own it outright, while leasehold means you're holding it for a fixed term with rent to pay and an eventual expiry. That difference changes everything. This next check is, honestly, the most important one of all. Does the seller actually own the land? We answer that with an official search at the registry, whether that's Artisasa or the local land registry. That search tells us the registered proprietor and the status of the title. And I can't stress this enough. An official search that we conduct beats any copy of a title the seller waves in front of you. If we see a rushed recent transfer or a status that says requires clarification, that's a red flag, and we stop and investigate. Even when a title is valid, it can carry claims that limit what the owner can do, and that's what we look for here. Charges or mortgages mean the land is pledged for a loan. Caveats mean someone else has registered an interest. Court orders mean there's active litigation. And way leaves or easements mean others have rights over the land, like a power line or a right of way. These don't always kill a deal, but every single one has to be cleared or fully disclosed before completion. A mortgage, for example, must be discharged so you don't inherit somebody else's debt. Documents can only tell us so much, so now we go to the ground. On the site visit, we confirm the land actually exists and matches the records, that the boundary beacons are visible, that there's usable access, and whether the land is empty or occupied. I want to flag access and occupancy especially, because these catch people out. Land with no legal access can be almost worthless, and land occupied by squatters can drag you into a long, costly dispute. These are exactly the problems no registry search will ever show you. This is where our surveying expertise really comes in. We take the official records, the Registry Index Map, the deed plan, the survey records, and we compare them against what's physically on the ground. We're asking, is the parcel correctly surveyed, and do the beacons match the records? Because overlaps, omissions, or a displaced beacon can quietly shrink or shift the land you think you're buying. This is why you want a licensed surveyor and not just a lawyer's search. Once we know the land is real and correctly bounded, the next question is, what are you actually allowed to do with it? Zoning determines that. We check the classification and confirm whether both the current use and your intended use are permitted. And if you'll need approvals, a change of user, or development permission, you want to know that now, before you buy, not after. Remember that intended use we noted earlier. This is where we test it. Here we make sure the parcel doesn't carry any outstanding government dues, because unpaid dues can follow the land to you as the new owner and stall your registration. Land rates are a county charge. Land rent applies to leasehold land. We confirm both are cleared, and importantly, we obtain the clearance certificate as proof. A seller simply telling you it's all paid is not evidence. Now we turn from the land to the person selling it, because owning land and having the authority to sell it are not the same thing. We verify the seller's identity and PIN, and then the right authority for their situation. Spousal consent, where it applies, a CR-12, and board resolution for a company, or a grant of probate or letters of administration for an estate. Selling on behalf of someone who has died without that grant is a classic void transaction. Some restrictions never show up on a title at all. They come from the public interest and the environment. So we check for riparian land, flood risk, forest or public land, NEMA restrictions, and utility corridors like roads, power lines, and pipelines. Riparian reserves are the one I'd single out because people build in them all the time and then face demolition. These checks stop you spending money on land you'll never be allowed to develop. At this point, every finding rolls up into a single risk picture. We rate the parcel low, medium, or high across 4 areas: legal, boundary, planning, and transaction risk. It turns a long investigation into something you can actually make a decision on. And bear in mind, a single high can outweigh several lows. The real question is which risks are curable, like an unpaid rate, and which are fundamental, like a contested boundary. Those ratings lead straight into our recommendation, and there are 3 possible conclusions. Proceed without reservations, proceed subject to conditions, or don't proceed at this stage. In practice, most reports land on proceed with conditions. Our opinion has to follow the evidence and stay independent, even when everyone's hoping to hear yes. And any conditions we set will be specific and verifiable. Now, a word on limitations, because this protects all of us. This report reflects the documents and searches available as at its date. It's a professional assessment, not a cast iron guarantee of title. Records can change, so if there's a long delay before completion, the key searches should be refreshed. And I'll be honest with you, I'll never tell you a parcel is 100% safe. What we do is reduce the risk to an informed, manageable level. Finally, the report has to be signed, because an unsigned report carries no professional weight. Authentication ties everything to a named, licensed surveyor: the name, the designation, the signature, and the date. The signature is what makes us accountable for the work, and the date fixes the currency of every finding. So let's bring it all together. We've moved from identifying the parcel to verifying the title and any claims against it, to confirming the land physically and technically, to checking use and dues, the seller's authority, and the environment, and finally, to a rated risk picture and a signed opinion. If you take one thing away today, let it be this: 15 checks, one clear answer. Engage a licensed surveyor early before you pay any deposit. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions. Reach out to us before purchasing your next property. Peter and Sammy will help you just now.